think you're muted, Professor. Oh, Joshua, thanks for telling me about the mic. So I went all this time. You've been able to watch me, but I'm going to go back and I'll do a 10-minute or so overview. Thank you for letting me know that the mic was off. I wish I would have read your message sooner. I don't know how it got muted. I had to have muted it. So be back. I'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, it is 9:10. Hopefully now everybody can hear me. Yes, my microphone was muted. All right. I can't blame anybody but me for that. So what I'm going to do is spend about 10 or 15 minutes going back over what I did where you could watch me do it, but you couldn't hear me. All right. So what we're supposed to be doing in this particular assignment is implementing this page right here. So when you click that, it's a link that's styled like a button. Special FX. This is the it's supposed to show right here. And this is the page that we are going to go and use Flexbox on to make it show, for lack of better words. So what I did was I followed the steps here. All right, as we've been doing, I started out by copying our chapter 8 folder to chapter 9. All right, then from chapter 8, I grabbed the index.html file that was in there, and I products folder. So I made a products folder, copied that index.html file into the products folder, and renamed it as special.html. So in other words, when we got to that point, all right, so what I'm telling you is I first went in and I copied the chapter 8 folder into chapter 9. I had to rename it. Then I went in here and back from the chapter 8 folder, it wouldn't matter if you used 8 or 9. I grabbed this index file, copied it, went back into my chapter 9. I did not have a products folder, so I made one, copied that file in here, and changed the name to special.html. All right. Then, and you probably watched me do this and yet couldn't hear me do it because of my ignorance, but let's take a quick look at that. What did we have to do? Well, in here, in all the lines that you see right here where we had been pathing to different things, style slash normalize, style slash etc. With all of those lines, since now we are in a subfolder called products, we can't just say style slash normalize.css. We have to go up a level with a dot slash style slash normalize.css. So I did that. Then go in and take our file that we used in chapter 8, which was called main_rwd.css. We were told to rename that file as c9_category.css. All right. And then again, we had to adjust the path for our slick nav, and we had to adjust the path for slick nav CSS and for slick nav JS. All right. So that's what we've changed in here. And hopefully you've had a chance to update and upgrade yours. So a / here, a / here, and rename that as shown, a / here, and a / there. All right, then in here, again, this is our special .html file. All right, in line 19, we had to again update our path to / images/pumpkin.gif. All right. Then in here, as you can see, in lines 26 to 29, 31 to 34, and 37, we had to preface everything we had in there originally with //. So // index.html, // products / index.html, etc. All right. So that's all of those. Then we went in, and what we were told to do was to take everything that was in this text special.txt file, and that's all this, 25 lines, totally unformatted. We were told to take all of this, highlight it, and copy it into special.html. So that's what we did. I removed everything between the original section tags. So we had a beginning and an ending section tag, and everything else in there was empty. So there was nothing in there. Then we took and copied that in from from our text file, our special.txt file. All right. The special effects had an H1. And then we just, for the 6 products, we did the same pattern. We did an H2, and in that H2, we put in a hypertext reference. So in other words, a link tag. All right. We named it the name of the product. So black light or fog machine or whatever. Then we put a paragraph in with that description. And then another paragraph in with the word price, a colon, actual price. And the price was supposed to be bolded. So this is the pattern we used for all 6 of our products. There's our black light. There's our fog machine. There's our fog juice. There's our skull fog. There's our black mini strobe light. And finally, there is our thunder and lightning machine. All right. Then I also went down, and on the bottom here, let me close that. I prefaced all these products things with .. And this is the one that matters the most because that's the one that we're manipulating. Special.html. When we got done with that, I did a file, save all, and I brought this thing up, this page up in live server. All right. Now it's getting there because some of the stuff, some of the CSS is in there, not all of it, but some of it's in there. All right. So some of it already is looking the way that it should look. That's good. But let's now go and take a look at what we were supposed to be doing next, which was this c9_category.css file. So that's it right here. And we put in a lot of changes. All right. So starting at the body, we put in there Verdana, not Veridana, Verdana. I've already told you this, that when there's a pattern like this, you can put in 6 or you can just put in 3. It will work. All right. Most of this was pretty much the same as what we had before. We turned off the margin and padding for H1 tags, H2 tags, H3 tags, and paragraph tags. All right. Here is where we went in and we set up our gradient. I don't think we changed anything in there. The biggest changes that you should be seeing in here is, for example, I'm looking here at that header image. All right. And I think that's wrong. All right. What do I mean? Well, that's a float that we still want to be floating. Well, I'm looking at my key and I still had a float in there and I don't know why, but I do. So what I'll do is I'll leave it in there and then later try to comment it out and see if it's wrong or if it's right. All right. We didn't change anything with the H2. With the H3, I think we either added the padding bottom or we did nothing to it. All right. Then we went into our navigation menu. Okay. We cleared. All right. We set no margin and no padding. Then in our unordered list, we pretty much kept it the way it was, except for the last 3 lines. Remember, anytime you put something in and you say display flex, you are making what you just put in there a flex box or a flex container. Since a UL, an unordered list, since it is comprised of list items, those list items are automatically flex items. Since the LIs, the list items, are comprised of A links, or A for our anchor links, they're also automatically flex items. So we added in here display flex, flex basis 100%, justify content space between to try to lay it out in a nice looking manner. All right. Then we changed the ULLI. All right. So they were taking up 20%. Now this UL in here, I didn't touch that. All right. The ULLI, I didn't touch that. I didn't touch the hover or the after or the UL that was in here. All right. Or the hover. I went all the way down to here. These are the actual links themselves. Let's say that again. These are the actual links themselves. There was one thing in here, this UL, I may have said it already, I may not have, but the UL should be a ULLI in here. We added that flex basis 20. All right. But we did not change the UL, which is our embedded list, our unordered list inside of an unordered list. We didn't change our embedded one, this, or any of the hover stuff or anything else. So again, I'm going to go all the way down to nav menu, ULLIA. And as I said earlier, which you probably couldn't hear, the way you have to look at this is these are all anchor links, but these anchor links must be in a list element, or I should say a list item. And these list items must be part of an unordered list. And this unordered list must have an ID of nav menu. All right. Hopefully by now that makes a little sense as far as being able to read that. Okay. I don't think we changed very much in there, but I'll leave it up there for a second just in case. All right. The next thing that was in there, again, the current anchor link in an LI, in a UL, in nav menu will have, We may have even been told to remove the current. I don't remember. I think that might have been one of the things we were asked to do. And if we were, all we'd have to do would be to comment that out. It's no big thing really one way or the other. This says that when you hover over that same link, all right, when you hover over it or when it has the focus, make it gray. All right. Then the next line, which is very important here, this is new. Again, remember that virtually everything on this page, at least I think, is inside of main. All right, I don't know if there's a main tag in here or not. I really don't know. Main. So it starts here on line 40, and it should end right before we've got the footer. And there it is on line 102. So 60 plus lines in there. And what we just did was we said that is now a flex container, meaning that virtually everything that of there in those 62 lines is now, they're now flex items, which means that we can take any of these things that we saw with Flexbox and apply it now, such as, well, let's start with the aside here. We're saying that the aside should basically take up about a fifth of the page, and it should be the first thing that shows with the order. All right, I didn't touch anything else in here with the UL, none of this stuff. All right, to my knowledge, but let's just take a quick look. So the UL LI got a margin bottom and a border, and the nav list UL LIA. I may have added the text align center in there. And we took the padding and just simplified it, for lack of better words, a little bit. And that's where we left off. All right. Okay. Next is our section stuff. So in our section, well, you'll notice that we've got a width and we've got a float right, and we got some padding in here. Well, I'm going to get rid of all three of these, and I'm going to replace them. I'll start with the padding. All right, we'll just put in 2 M's, and then we'll also use a percentage. Now, with some of these, if you turn around, you go, how do you know this? How do you know when to use M's? How do you know when to use rems? How do you know when to use percentages? All right, it's look and feel, and it's playing around. All right, and sometimes I used rems instead of M's, but I went back and looked at what the author did afterwards. All right, and I would always bow to what the author says. So after padding, we want flex basis. And that'll be 78.5%. Now, where did that number come from? Well, if you remember earlier, when we set the flex basis up here, wherever that was, it was set to 21.5%. All right, and 100 minus 21.5%, okay, is going to give us 78.5%. All right, our H1, 140.5, that looks good. Our H2, I'm not going to play with the first letter stuff. So the H2 that's in here, all right, that looks okay. The H3 looks okay. The paragraph, that looks okay. The anchor tag in here, well, the only thing I'm going to add in here is a text decoration none to make sure there's no underlining there, okay? All right, our section A link in our main A visited, orange, that's fine. Our section A hover and our main A focus, green, That's fine. So I added this. All the rest of the stuff you see here on the page is okay. All right. I'm going to jump down then into the footer. Now, after the footer, we'll go and we'll look at the media queries. Okay. So in the footer, well, we got that border top. I don't think it's going to hurt anything to clear. We probably don't have to be even clearing anything now, but it's not going to matter. And we're not changing the gradient that's in here. That's okay. So moving our way down, the paragraphs within the footer, 90% center aligned, that's fine. The mobile menu, and again, that's the way you typically do it, is you've got mobile menu as shown right there, display none. All right. We don't want to display the mobile menu unless, we are at a certain size. Okay, so let's look at the media queries and see if any of these changed. All right. So with a max width of 800 pixels, all right, we've got HTML background image, none. Body, font size, 90%, box shadow, none. That looks okay. For our 767, okay. Well, one thing we want to change in here, all right, is we want to go from a row format to a columnar format because we need to stack because we've got a smaller screen size. So after our header H2 here, we're going to add in here main. This is new. Flex, direction, column. Again, please be cognizant of the fact that with flex direction, it's row or column. If it's row, everything is, they try to lay it out all on the same line. If it's column, like we just put here, and we stack one, then the next, then the next, then the next, etc. All right. Then our section, well, we don't need width anymore. We don't need float anymore. We can put in some padding, but I'm just going to get rid of everything here. And we want this, the order to be 1. What does that mean? Well, earlier, before we did the media queries, we had order 1 for the aside, so the aside came first. But once we start stacking it, the section is deemed to be more important. All right, the section is deemed to be more important than the aside. So as we stack them, that one will be stacked first. All right. So since that has got an order of 1, now in here for the aside, it will have an order of 2. All right, we'll change the padding around just a little bit here. Like that. So you can see again that when we start to stack this, that what is happening here is previously we had the aside. So on the left-hand side was the aside, and then on the middle to the right-hand side was the section. Now, since we're stacking them, we are stacking the section, then underneath the section will be the aside. All right. Our UL here, we don't need a width anymore. We shouldn't. We shouldn't need a text align center. Now, as far as padding, we don't need, we'll just put padding and we'll set it at 0, top and bottom, and 25% left and right. All right. This ULLAI, we shouldn't have to touch that. So that's our next one. So next we want to go in and check the 479. H2 looks fine. H3 looks fine. H1 looks fine. I'm not even going to touch the first letter. That may end up looking funky. I don't know. All right, so I'm going to come in and do a file, save all. So now everything has been saved. And now I'm going to jump back to the PDF here. So we did that. We made the copy. We did the modifications. And I believe we were doing this. We did all these steps that you see right here. Now we'll see right now, okay? So I'm going to come into my special and I'm going to bring it up in live server. All right. And now I want to take this. I don't know if it'll let me do it or not, but there it is. All right. And so that's it running. And I also want to take this because that's it running as well. And I want to cut that down. All right. So in other words, this is what we have. Now it looks like this S in special effects. It looks like that might be wrong. All right. And it also looks like this should be moved down here, but I'm looking more at how everything is set up here. So it looks like they put some shadow in here. All right, I can't tell, but it looks like, and I don't have the shadow. You can see this stuff works. There's still links, etc. All right. And we can go back to home. That still works. None of the rest of the things in here are operational. So is it right? It's more right than it is wrong. Let's put it that way. All right. So again, I've got in here, I've got this where they've got it at the side. I actually like it better where it is. This special effects, that brings us right back to where we are. All right. But as far as I can tell, now if I take this and open it up all the way, that's what it looks like. If I take the one that I'm working on, all right, my copy in here, and I, whoops, bring that up over here. All right, now it really does look a lot like it does in the book or in the PDF. All right, so it's not until it gets smaller that we move that down to the bottom. But other than that, I think it looks pretty much the way that we were saying that it was supposed to look. All right, so what I wanted to get out of this was just that you'd seen the usage of some of this stuff. All right, now we're gonna leave that. So if yours looks pretty much like mine, totally fine. Don't worry about it. All right. One of the things that I had told you yesterday is I had given you some resources yesterday that you could use. All right. And I'm very quickly, I'm not going to go a second on them, but I just want to mention them again. So I'm going to put in here Web Dev Simplified. And I'm going to put in here CSS Flexbox. All right. So CSS Flexbox Ultimate Guide. No, that was this one. Now the Ultimate Guide, I don't even know what that is. I don't know how long that is or anything. All right, there he refers to his thing in 15 minutes, and it looks like that's got all the content in it. All right, so if you want that, if you're interested, if you're not, you're not. But if you are, you can go over to there. All right, it's his blog, and I'll include that in my note to you, my email to you later. But this 15-minute thing is one of the things that I had recommended to you. All right. And in there, he takes a simple example and runs through the major commands. All right. The other one that I'd recommended to you, and again, whether you look at it or not is totally up to you, but that was Brad Traversy, CSS Flexbox Crash Course. It was called Crash Course 2022, something like that. And there it is. And that's about 47 minutes in length. So again, if you tell me I don't have time to look at that, I understand. But when you're doing the test, if you run into problems, all right, it's not, when you take tests, what I have to wean myself away from is you can't, you're not supposed to be able to send me an email and say, what am I doing wrong here? No, that's part of what the test is. You're supposed to figure out what you're doing wrong. All right. So I've given you a couple resources in there that you can use. All right. Okay. The next thing I wanted to mention, and I don't want to spend any time on this or much time on this at all, but I had said this to you before, and that is I'm going to put in here W3 schools, CSS grid. All right. And this is their CSS grid tutorial. The main thing I want you to see when you look at this is if you have a setup that's kind of all over the place. And what do I mean by that? Well, usually if the header is going to take up 100%, so is the footer. Usually the menu will be up in the header or down somewhere in here, but this is a different kind of layout. Someone may like or want this layout. So what we have been looking at with Flexbox, you are either working with the x-axis or the y-axis. In other words, you're working with the main axis or the cross-axis, but you can only work with one of them at a time. When you work with CSS grid, it's not one-dimensional where it's just main or cross, it's two-dimensional, which means that you can work with both axes at the same time. And what a lot of times what people like to do is to lay out everything using grid, and then once they start prettying it up and whatever, then inside of grid start using Flexbox. But again, it's not that you have to do it that way, but I just wanted to mention that to you. So they go through this and they give you a fairly simple example where they set up a grid. Then they go in and they talk about the container, and I'm not going to go through any of this. There are plenty of examples in here where you work with rows. You can see how they're changing sizes in here, how they're justifying like we did yesterday. Excuse me. And you'll notice it's display grid now. It's not display flex. Many of the commands are going to be similar. We had justify content start and justify content end yesterday. We did some aligned content stuff yesterday, like space evenly, space around. So it's the same stuff. But rather than just being able to do something horizontally or vertically, you can do it both horizontally and vertically. All right. And finally, they come in here and they've got these grid items. So you start to see you can make, let's just say, not typical looking type of sites like they show right here. Now, you may not agree with that. You might say, well, that looks normal to me. Okay. All right. But there you've got a lot more play, for lack of better words, when you're using grid. All right. So again, they go through the column property here and the row property here. And you'll notice there's the column property, but you're only working with one column and you're not working with the rest. There's the row property and you're only working with one row. Okay. Oh, I would have said that backwards myself, but there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do in here. They actually bring in some math, and I'm not going to do that, but you'll see some of the weird looking stuff that you can create. All right. So I'm just going to leave it at that. There are examples in here, quite a few. If it's worth your time, you'll look at it. If you don't have the time, you won't. And that's okay. Now, what I sent you earlier this morning, two things. So I'm going to close this. I am going to close this. I'm going to close this. I'll do a file save first. All right, now I'm going to close this so I don't have anything open. Now, what I want to show you is this. This is that Flexbox site. What I have sent you thus far, what I have sent you from this site is the HTML, the favicon. All right, so that's what's in here, this thing that says Rankin AWD. All right, if you look in there, right now the HTML is empty, but I sent you that too, just because there's about almost 300 lines. There was not going to be time for us to type all that in. All right, so you're going to have this in a minute if you don't already. The favicon, which is just a little picture of Rankin right there. The images, and they're split into two parts. The home images, that's at the bottom. There's the logo. That's near the top and that's near the middle. Plus there's something called team, which has got Evan and Doug and me. All right, so you've got all that stuff. But what I wanted to show you in all of this is, if I come over here right now, this is again what we're building. All right, looks pretty nice, fairly professional, I think, but I'm a little biased. But if I come in here and I take my line of code that says style, and I'm just going to comment that out for right now. All right, so I'm commenting out that line, okay? And I'm going to run it again. So you can see, when you look at it, very similar to the type of thing that we did yesterday with the RWD design for Stello's flower and wine bar. All right, it kind of looks the same type of way right now. All right, this is our logo right now. As you can see, this is our navigation bar. It's not formatted, and rather than it being, in a row format, it's in a columnar format. In here, well, there's a read more, but you can see the sizes and stuff, but there's not much in here. And if I looked at it right now, it actually is, it doesn't look very good, but it actually is a little bit responsive in that it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look any more terrible on a real small screen than it does on a large screen. All right. So what I'd like you to do is this. All right. I think, and the reason I'm doing this is I believe it's going to help when you take your test. Now, this was the email I gave you earlier today, the one I always give you every morning. Then after that, I sent you a second email. And that second email, once I find it, was this one. And it said, as noted above, more in class. So you've got a folder that's called rankinawd.zip. All right, just so we're all going to be at the same layer and the same level here. All right, I'm going to look. Let's see, do I have a Rankin? There's my Rankin AWD.zip. I'm going to get rid of that. And I don't know if I've got a Rankin AWD in here, but if I do, I'm going to get rid of that as well. I don't think I do, looking here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I've gotten rid of that as well. I don't have that. Okay, so the first thing I was asking you to do then was to go in, and with that email, all right, click on it. I'm just going to do a save as, and I'm going to save that right to the desktop. All right, to me, that's the easiest way. And it's rankinawd.zip. Save. Now it should be saved to the desktop. Okay, so after I've saved that, I'm going to come back to the desktop, find it, the Rankin AWD. See my messed up desktop here. All right, but I'll find it. There it is. Okay, So I'm going to unzip it. All right, and it put it over here. So there it is. There's my rank in AWD. So what's in there right now? All right, what's in there? Again, an empty CSS file. All right, that's called styles.css. Those images I mentioned to you before, the home ones I called home for whatever reason, and team, which has got the three of us. All right. Then our favicon. Finally, we've got the HTML file. Now, the HTML file currently is empty. I bring it up there. There's nothing in it. There it is. It's empty. But what I sent you right before class started today was a second email. And in that second email, I sent you the index.html file. Now, normally, that was a real bad practice. If you are sending individual files like this, HTML files or CSS files, or especially JavaScript files, normally you should put those into a folder and send them in a zip folder. I did this right before class. No excuse. It's just I did it that way. So I'm going to go over here to index.html, and I'm going to save that. And I'm going to save that to my desktop. So I've now got an index.html file in there. Finally, I'm going to take that index.html that I just saved, that's right here. That's got content in it. This one's empty. So I'm going to remove the one that's currently in my Rankin AWD folder. I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to take the one that I emailed you and I'm going to put that in here. So again, I now have, well, that doesn't look good because it says 0. Hopefully the one I sent you wasn't size 0, but we'll look right now. No, it says 4KB. So let's see if that one's 4KB. But it's showing that as being empty. All right, this is what I'm going to do just in case this happened to you. I don't know if it did or not. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab the file, the index.html file, the one that actually works. That's right here. All right, I'm going to put it into a folder that I'm just going to call HTML file. All right, so I'm going to copy it in there. All right, so I now should have a folder called HTML file. Okay, that's right here, and it's got in it something that it says is 8K, so it does have all of my stuff in it. Good, so that's all in there now. Then I'm going to take that folder and I'm going to zip it. So it's now zipped. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to send it out to all of you. Even if you say you got it already, that's fine. But just in case you didn't have it. Okay. All right, I'm going to send out a new email right now, and I'm going to include myself in that email. I'm going to include all of you in that email, and I'm just going to put a message here that says HTML file as noted. All right, and send that out to everybody. That should come by you, and it should come by me in a matter of, hopefully, seconds. And there it is. not add it. Good God, you're a dummy. Okay, try it again. I didn't add the file. So let's reply to all. And let's attach the file this time. So HTML file.zip. Okay, there it is. All right, now I'm going to send it. Now I should have a zipped folder that's called HTML file. There it is. I'm going to unzip that. Right, and it'll put it into something called HTML file. Then I'm going to open that, grab that file right there, copy it, and put it into my folder that's called Rankin AWD. As soon as I can find the thing. All right, so in there, I don't need this empty one anymore. I just need this. All right, now, if I bring this up right now, okay, it looks like that. Exactly what we looked at before. All right, why? Because we have nothing right now. We have absolutely nothing in our CSS file. All right, so what we're going to do for a while at least is we're going to come in and we're going to, for lack of better words, fix that by adding some CSS into this. All right. So again, this is our Flexbox site, and I have given you everything but the CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this Rankin AWD folder right here. I'm going to open it up in code. All right. So you can see what's in here right now. You can see that there's the index file. We shouldn't have to do anything in there. Hopefully we won't. We've got a favicon. We've got an images folder with 2 subfolders worth of images in there. All right. And we've got right now an empty CSS file. So again, if I bring this up in live server, looks the same way that I just showed it to you. That is like this. So this is what we're going to fix right now. All right. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open up my styles.css. I'm going to expand my screen size and I'm going to immediately come in here and put on word wrap just in case I need it. Now, there's a lot to type in here. All right. Probably a good 300 lines. And hopefully we can do it fairly quickly. But I want to show you what I did in here. So we'll do some of this stuff and then we'll run it again. Then we'll do some more stuff and we'll run it again, etc. So I started out with just some general settings. If you decide, you know what, I don't, this is too much. I can't do all this. I can't type in 300 lines. I'll save this when I get done and I'll put it out there as a repo. So if it's easier for you, just watch. Totally fine. All right, first I'm going to start with that universal selector. And I'm going to say that box sizing, border box, no margin, no padding. All right, now I'm not, right now it would look a little more pushed over if I ran it, but that's fine the way it is. All right, so for the body, I'm going to set up a font family. Just the same way I did it the other day. I'm going to start with Arial, and have Arial, Helvetica, and Sans Serif. We'll set up a background. And I'm just going to make it white. I'm making this really, really simple. All right. We'll set up a color and we'll use, all right, that lighter black. So we're just making it white and black. I'm not worrying about making it look really sensational or whatever right now. All right. So that's what we've done so far. So if I save this and we go back and look at it again, say closed it. So far, it doesn't really look any different. All right. It pretty much was black. I just pretty much in here. I'm putting in the defaults. All right. So let's start to pretty it up. We haven't done any Flexbox yet. We are to the point right now where I should not have to explain what that's doing. That should make sense to everybody. All right. Again, should make sense to everybody. Now, normally I come in here and I say font weight bold. But if you look right here, you'll notice that I can use numbers. They start from 100 and they go to 900. And as the numbers increase, the amount of boldness increases. So 100 is about the smallest amount of bold you can put in, where 900 would be the biggest. And I'm just going to set it to 300. All right. And again, we will set a line height in here. So these, again, as it's set up here, these are just general settings. We've done nothing right now that's going to affect this as far as Flexbox goes. All right. So we put in already about 10% of the code that we're going to put in. And again, if I come in here and save, and I go back into my index and I run it, you're not really going to notice any differences. We haven't done anything yet, but now we're going to start. What do I mean? The next thing that we're going to come in here and work with is the nav bar. All right. So that's where you'll start to see some changes. Now, we will want the nav bar to change as the size changes. So why am I telling you this? Because we're going to come in here and for this nav bar, all right, I'm going to start with a display flex. And again, I know it sounds like a broken record, all right, but what that means, not there, I'm sorry. I got to say, all right, so our nav bar, we want a display flex in there, which is taking the nav bar and it's making it a flex container. That's what we just did. All right. I could set a 70 pixels. Let's see, we can make it 1.7 divided by 6. I'm just going to leave it at pixels. It's fine. Now, it may not look like we changed a lot in there, and we're going to bring it up and actually take a look at it in just a minute, but we're not done yet. All right. We still want to change the nav bar, the links when we hover over them, and we want to change the unordered list, and we want to change the logo. All right, so this is the nav bar here itself. Again, we're making that a flex container as well, which means that everything that's inside of there, in other words, the UL, the LIs, and the A tags are all now flex items because we made this a flex container. All right, we're telling it to align it to the center. We're working with justification there. And the rest of the stuff is all stuff you've looked at before, except this. We've talked about it, but it's been a while. We're telling it the menu to stay fixed, and we're telling it to be at the top of the page. So we're basically creating the equivalent of a sticky menu right there. All right. So that's everything that's in there. Now, I don't know if we save this and if we go in and look at it, doesn't look any different yet. All right. But hopefully it's going to after we put the rest of the stuff in here for it. All right. So after the nav bar, we're going to come up. And I mean, we can do it in any order we want, I guess, but I'm going to do the nav bar UL. That's the unordered list. And again, display flex. Now, I literally wrote this like 3 years ago. So if you were to ask me, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Probably don't remember, to be honest with you. That's why there's still some pixel stuff in here. I don't really use pixels much anymore, period. That's what I've changed. I'll come right back to it. And it still isn't changing. No, I think the reason it's not changing, but we'll see in just a second. Styles, and I've commented out the line. I need my end tag there. So let's do a file, save all. And let's look at it again. All right. Why hasn't it still changed? I don't know. Oh boy. But we're going to figure it out anyway. So we've got in here, this is styles, and that says style. That's why. Yes. Let's try it again. Save, and let's bring it up. There you go. Now you can see it's already changing. All right. But the main thing is what we've done is we have told the system when we set this up that these should basically have the same amount of space between them, and that space there is pretty much equal to that space here. And we've got our logo over here. Why am I even taking the time to mention this to you? Because next week, or at the end of this week, I should say, you're going to be getting Hot 3. You're going to be asked to basically make some kind of a product page. All right. Some of it will be similar in nature to what we're doing here. Some of it will be very different. All right. So, like I said, hopefully you'll be able to use this as you're going. All right. Hopefully you'll be able to use this. Okay. But we'll see. All right. So, what do we care about next? Well, if you look in here, first of all, those are really big pictures. So you can see there's a lot of problems. But there's a bigger problem that you may or may not have even realized. And that is this right here is supposed to have a background image. Well, we didn't add that yet because, again, you add the background image in your CSS. All right. But I do want to mention, so if we look in here now, we've now got, for lack of better words, basically everything up until about this has been handled now. All right. Pretty much that's been handled. In fact, I guess it's not even up here. It's all of our header stuff. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. All right. So now we're in our body. And you'll notice in the header, we put in here a class of hero. Okay. Yesterday, when we were working, okay, we went in and I mentioned to you that when we were working on the Stella one, that sometimes, you do things in different ways. All right. So what am I telling you? Well, you already know this, but when you look in here in our hero class, everything that's in the header, you'll notice if you take a look here was the logo. You've already seen that. And there it is. All right. The nav bar. You've already seen that. All right. But you haven't seen this. All right. And this in here is where we're going to end up putting a picture with a background image. All right. And that picture with the background image is going to have a button in it that's going to say read more. All right. And you may or may not have even noticed this. It's not a big thing, but we're bringing in Font Awesome here and we're telling it to use a chevron. That's basically just going to look like a greater than sign. All right. So it'll be read more followed by a greater than sign type of thing. In fact, the read more will be on the button, the text on the button. All right. Up to here. So now we want to go into that hero section, the thing I just showed you. All right. And I'm going to start putting some code in there. So the background on here is a URL. All right. And it's ./images/home/showcase.jpg. Okay. Very similar to what we did yesterday. But just like yesterday, we don't want it to repeat. We want it to be centered, and we wanted it to center and cover the whole thing. All right. Now, one thing we have not talked about much in here is what I'm putting in here next. Height, 100 VH. We're going to talk about it when we look at it in just a second. Position relative. All right. Spell position correctly. And our text color will be white. All right. What did that do? Again, The easiest way is to just sit there and do a file, save, and then bring it up. All right. There's our picture. There's our read more. So we haven't done anything as far as fixing that up, but we will. But we did bring in the picture now. That's good. And that's just something I found online, as you'd probably guess. All right, so let's go back into our styles again. And in our hero, and again, hero is a class. We've got a class in there called content. All right. Well, that content that's in there, we want to make that a flex container. So we'll do a display flex. We'll do a flex direction in there. We'll make it column. All right. We'll align the items to the center. We'll justify the content to the center. We're trying to center everything in here. We'll do a text align center. We'll give it a height of 100% and some padding. Oops. Now, we're not done, of course, but it's starting to get a little bit of substance to it. We just put that in there, basically. All right. We're not done yet, but I do want to mention something to you because this people sometimes find this confusing. All right. I put in there, if you remember, one of the things that got put in there was height 100 VH. Now, if you can imagine your screen right here, and it doesn't matter what the size is, but imagine that I cut it into 100 pieces and I went this way. So there was one piece, two pieces, three pieces, four pieces, etc. And I did it 100 times. So there were 100 pieces in here. What I'm telling you is when you set a height to 100 VH, what you're saying is regardless of how big or how small the screen is, it should take up 100% of what you see on the screen at any one time. See that? You're not seeing any of the rest of the site. You're only seeing that picture. That is view height. There's also a view width. And with that, you have to imagine you're cutting your screen into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 pieces as well. Now, view width is not used very often. View width is not used very often because for most people, all right, you want it to cover 100% anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, we're going to finish this hero section. Got a few more things to do, and then we'll take another break. All right. So I just did the hero content, and I'll leave that up there as best I can. And you'll notice I played around here with things like the font weight instead of just saying font weight bold. If you don't like that, working with the numbers like that, you could just put font weight bold for each one of those where I put a 100 or a 300 or whatever. It really and truly doesn't matter. All right. So that's the H1. And for the paragraphs, notice again, we're setting a max width and not a width. We're setting a max width because remember, one of the things that we want to set up when we are trying to make something responsive is a fluid layout. And that's what we're doing here. All right. One more thing, and that is a couple more things we're going to put in here. Not a lot, but a few more lines. We're going to go over this after the break. Okay, two more lines or three. Let me do a file save. Let me go back and let me run it again. All right, it's looking better. It doesn't look perfect. Don't know where our button is. Seems to have disappeared, but we'll find it. All right, but it doesn't look too bad right now. So I will look at this during the break. I've got 10:20. Let's take till 10:30 and we'll pick it up here. We've already got a third of this code put in. All right, and we're just going to pick it up from there. I'm going to go and check and make sure I didn't miss anything in these first 100, and we'll start up again at 10:30. So I'll see you then. All right, looks like it is 10:30, so I'm going to start back up. And the next thing I want to do is I want to add the CSS code for the button. What I'm going to do before I put this out is I'm going to change all those pixels to rems, just so you know. All right, I'll give you a second to catch up on that. Some of the things in here you may or may not remember. I'm just setting the cursor. All right, I want to be able to do some stuff, so we're displaying it as inline blocks, just so we can put in some of the other CSS that's in here. This, believe it or not, to my knowledge at least, that B02538, that is rank in red. That's why that color is being used. No border, a little bit of circular around the button, and as it says, margin top. Now, you may or may not know what this means. All right. Opacity is a number that if you use it, you put it in and it's between 0 and 1. If you put in 0, all right, then whatever you put it in with, it's totally transparent. You can't see it at all. If you put it in as 1, it's totally opaque. In other words, there's no transparency at all. What this is saying is when you hover on that button, make it look just a little bit 10% transparent. All right, that's it. We could have changed the color on it. We could have done something else, but that's what I did here. All right, because it gave me a chance to talk about opacity. All right, that's pretty much, I believe, everything for the button. So let's see if we brought the button back in. And I'll come right back to this. All right, so there it is. That's the chevron, the greater than sign there. It's, it's got read more. What this is going to do, if I click on it, is it actually brings you out to rank and cite. Notice it's on a separate page. So I did a target equal blank, but I actually found out where on the website the application and web development stuff actually is. All right. So I'll leave that up there for a moment, and then we're going to go into the section header. All right, so let's go into that section header. And again, if you're falling behind, if you are trying to key in with me, I will save this when we're all done. Anytime you take something like this and you do an align item center, a justify content center, and a text align center, that's about all you can try to do to center something on a page. All right. So right now it doesn't look like much different. All right. But you can see this is in here now. So now we want to go in and we want to actually be able to do stuff with our flex items. So anything, all right, remember that anything that is anything that is inside of a display flex, all right, meaning it's a flex container, are flex items. So anything we've given that class to. All right, so those are my flex items. And I'm going to even have some flex columns in here. Okay, we talked a little bit about the reverse yesterday. Let's take a look and see if it looks any different. All right, it's getting there. All right, so you can see what's been done so far, and that's got to be fixed, but that's okay. Quick little descriptions of the 4 courses in the program, and now this has been split into 2. All right, we still haven't gone through and done anything in here. We haven't gone through and done anything in here either. So we're going to do all that in just a second. And we're up to just about 200 lines that we put in here. And when we get done, we'll have about 330 lines. So we're about 2/3 of the way finished right now. What happened last year was I went over this, just exactly what I'm going over with you right now. And then students took their test. And when they took their test, what they tried to do was they tried to take exactly what I'm creating here and just change the images and change the text and then turn it in. Now, some of them did that and they were very successful with it, even though that's not what you were supposed to do. And some of them just failed miserably. All right. And what I mean by that is their stuff was thrown all over the place, stuff wasn't formatted, etc. So what I think I'm going to do is this maybe was a little bit too difficult of an example. I'm going to see if I've got another one that I've written that's maybe a little bit easier than this, and we'll go over that tomorrow. And then after we do that, I will send out a copy of the test for everyone. And you'll have plenty of time then to be working between that and again, doing the written test, the homework, and the labs for chapters 8 and 9. Okay. All right, sorry, the internet connection was going down there. Um, all right, we should now be done pretty much through the pictures of myself, Evan, and Doug. So let's see. That should have been centered, and it's not. I'll go back and double check everything. Now, when you take your test, when I pass this out to you tomorrow, there'll be two things on it. You'll have to create an app, and then you have to write something down too. All right. It's not a written test, but you'll have to be doing a little bit of writing. Okay. So the last thing is this form that I call the callback form. But you can see this doesn't look bad, but this looks terrible. And this looks pretty terrible. So we'll have to do the callback form and the footer. And that's pretty much, I think, what we have left to do here. That should have covered the entire registration section. And you can see what that looks like now. A little bit better, I think. And the only thing that's left then is the footer and then a couple media queries. That's the footer down here. These actually all work. This will go to Rankin's. Rankin does have a Facebook page. Rankin has a Twitter page. Rankin has a YouTube page. And Rankin has a LinkedIn page. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. We're going to write one media query in just a second, but I want to take a look at this first. And there that is. Now, I could have used the regular colors on here too. I just used the Rankin red for when we highlight them. But you'll notice, so we are on right here. And if I do go here, it keeps this open, but it goes to Rankin's Facebook page. If I do it here, it goes to Rankin's Twitter page. If I go here, it goes to Rankin's YouTube page. And finally, if I go to here, it goes to Rankin's LinkedIn page. All right. I should mention this to you because as things come up during the semester and I think of them, I try to bring them up to you. If you have never heard of LinkedIn before, you really should check it out. Go out to linkedin.com and you should register out there. And basically what you can do, I mean, here's me, and it's not perfect or anything. I haven't looked at it in a while, but when I do this, you can go through and get information. All right. So this is what I've done for my career, basically. All right. And there's some other stuff. There wasn't enough space to show it, but you can look in there as well. And what it is a lot of times what's going to happen is when you apply for a job, one of the first things that will happen is whomever is going to hire you is going to go in and they're going to say, do they have a LinkedIn profile? And they're going to look. So again, there's my education, some of my skills, etc. All right, type of stuff in there. All right. So again, I'm looking here and it's showing me an error. Trying to figure out where that is. There it is. Okay. And finally, down at the bottom, then we'll put in our media query. So right now, before we do this, if I go and save one more time and we bring this thing up, it looks pretty decent. Again, not perfect, but considering the amount of time we spent on it, it looks pretty decent. But when we make it smaller, now it looks real pushed right there. That looks bad. Those look like they're off kilter. That looks pretty bad. All right. So we want to just set it up so that when we are looking at it on a mobile device, that it looks, I'm not even going to say great, but decent. And typically a max width you use in here is again 768 pixels because that basically is about tablet size. And the last thing, all right. So you see what it looks like here. And when we make it small, okay, you can see we move this underneath the logo and we centered them both. These are all centered. This has been broken down. So this was, you know, into halves, so to speak. The picture on one half and then this on the other half. There's the team. And there's the registration. So again, by no means is this perfect, but what we were able to do in a little bit over an hour is to build a fairly complex application that uses Flexbox. What I think I'm going to do, try to do tomorrow, and I said this before, I'm going to do two things. First of all, when we finish today, which will be in just a couple minutes, I'm going to go back in, and I think I said this to you earlier. I'm going to change all of these absolute measurements of pixels. I'm going to change them all to relative rem units. Okay. Should look exactly the same as long as I do the math right. And secondly, tomorrow when you come in, we're going to create another one of these from scratch. But I think I'll try to come up with something that's smaller where we can put in the HTML and we can put in all of the CSS. That should, I hope at least, get you ready to take the test. That'll take 1.5, 2, whatever hours. And then the rest of the period, then I will make sure after we take a break after that time, everybody a copy of the then the rest of the period on Wednesday will be lab. So will Thursday and Friday. All right. And like I said, by doing that and giving you approximately 10 hours, you should be able to finish the test and do the chapters 8 and 9 homework, labs, and written tests and get everything in by Sunday at midnight. All right. So like I said, that's what I had for today. I'll fix this up and I will put this out there. It should be out there by around 11:30. All right. That's all I've got for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good day. Thanks.